right, Celeste, we have soil on the table today. So what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so I wanted to do, a quick demo just to show people what our soil products are made of and what the differences are between them. You go to the store and you see all these different specialty mixes, potting mixes, and you oftentimes wonder, well, what's the big difference, right? Well, there is a pretty drastic difference in specialty mixes for a variety of different plants. So today, just kind of wanted to highlight some of those and help people know what's inside the bag before they buy it.
And we're talking about houseplant media. Right.
Yes, yes, media for houseplants particularly. And so I guess we'll just jump right into it. So basically, all of those are going to have some mixture of some of these basic components that we have right here. This is peat moss. And you can see how fine and dry this is. And this is going to be one of the base components of really the majority of our soil mixes. So it's hydrophobic by nature, means it repels water. However, if we put water in here, mix it in really well and help that moisture get into these very fine fibers, once it's moistened, it will have excellent retention of water. So you can moisten it easily and then it will hold that water to make it available to the plants. And another attribute that it has, which seems a bit counterintuitive, is that it has pretty good drainage because of the very fine particles. Another thing that we'll find oftentimes in some of our soil mixes is this product called Perlite. And you can tell here it's very, very fine. It's almost like a ground up styrofoam, I guess, if you will, is what it looks like in texture. And so perlite's added to mixes. What they provide to that mix is improved drainage. And then a third product here is the Vermiculite. And again, it has a bit of a different texture. It's almost corky feeling. It has the ability to absorb moisture, and it could also be used in a mix to help improve drainage just by creating some space inside that media and allowing channels for water to go down through there. I didn't bring any today, but other things that you might commonly see in your mixes would be shredded barks, sand even, and in some cases, some more unique type products like coconut fibers, and things of that nature. So a lot of different base products that go into making some of these specialty mixes. And so before we get into talking about the mixes, I'd like for us to just talk a little bit about what are the basic jobs that a potting media needs to provide to a houseplant, right? So we've kind of mentioned it already. Of course, it needs to be able to accept and hold water. If the media can't hold water, then it's not available to the root zone of those plants, right? Another thing that's tied very closely with that same concept is nutrient uptake. So what I feel like a lot of people don't realize is that how do the nutrients actually get to your plant, right? You don't put fertilizer on and it just directly takes the fertilizer up. That nutrients is dissolved in what we call a soil solution, and then that solution is taken up through the roots.
That's good.
So if your plants are too dry and you fertilize them, but you don't water them, then the nutrients aren't going to get there. So you've got to have both the water and the nutrient component. So those are the two basic jobs that we're really looking for these things to do. Other kind of supporting aspects would be stabilization. So when we have larger foliage plants, some of those actually could benefit from a heavier soil media to help anchor their roots and hold them upright. And then the final thing I'd like to mention there as far as their basic jobs is aeration.
It's so important.
Some plants actually, believe it or not, don't need soil at all. Sometimes you'll see orchids would be a good example. You might see them tied up with like some wire or in a little cage and hung decoratively somewhere. Or another example would be air plants. Those are kind of a neat, little plant. So lots of different options, and we want to make sure that our plants are being delivered the things that they need to thrive. And
so before you get into that, so soilless.
Yes, good point. So I hope you've noticed that we've been referring to our medias as media and not soil, okay? So when you hear someone say a soilless media, that means that there is no native soil in these products, okay? So peat moss is not soil, it's peat moss. If it had soil in it, I'll say some advantages of a soilless media, or is that we have better control over the density of that product, better control over water retention and aeration. And then also we know that soilless medias are disease and weed free. And really that's the number one.
Yeah,
super, super important. So if you just went out in your yard and dug up a couple buckets of soil and tried to plant your house plants in them, you probably would not have the success that you have in mind.
Good point, Celeste.
That you'd be looking for.
Good.
So that's what we're referring to when we're saying soilless media.
Because we hear it a lot these days.
Yes.
Soilless media. Okay.
Yes, so much. So thanks for asking that. Okay, great. So we'll just jump in to a few of the different mixes. Now, there's lots of brands out there on the market, right? I mean, all different kinds of brands, all different types of mixes. But I've picked 4 to share with everybody today that I feel like are pretty common. So lots of folks grow African violets. All right, if you're not familiar with African violets, know that they really prefer to be watered from underneath. They don't like to have a lot of moisture on their leaves. And so this is the product that we're looking at for African violet.
Looks good and rich.
It does look rich. And let me kind of do this so you can see the texture of it. So if you can look in here, you can actually see that we have the base of course is peat moss, but we have quite a bit of bark in here as well, like shredded pieces of bark. Finely shredded, not big pieces, but finely shredded bark. You can see these white dots here, that's perlite.
Okay.
Having that component of the peat moss allows this mix to be able to wick moisture up from the base of that African violet container. The next one on our list here is a succulent mix. And it has a much different, even color, not only texture, but color. You can see this one's a lot lighter, a lot drier, and I'm going to say that probably, 98% of that, the base is peat moss. And, depending on what you're doing, you could use a succulent mix for your cactus, but if you've been out there shopping, you will notice that they even have a specialty mix for cactus. And you can see this one is much darker in color, and it actually has a heavier feel to it than the other one did. And so I know that you can't tell it, but this one actually has quite a bit of sand in the mix. So what is sand doing? Sand is a very coarse particle, and so it's providing, again, drainage. So even more drainage in this mix than what we were finding in the succulent mix. And then the last one that I wanted to share with y'all today, this is really unique. So this is a mix that you might use for orchids, if you're repotting orchids up. It's very, very coarse. It has no peat moss in it. This is all bark, shredded bark, largely shredded bark. And then let me pick up one of these pieces so you can see here. This is charcoal.
Hey, that's something, charcoal.
Yeah. And so that also does a lot for preventing fungus development. So like we talked about before, orchids really need excellent aeration. They do not want their roots to be in a heavy type media that's going to retain moisture for any amount of time. Some orchids actually could survive just on misting. So just misting those roots periodically. But if you, again, it's a big orchid, you need something that needs an anchor, to hold it up, and you're doing those in pots, that would be an excellent option. And so with that, I'd like to point out that there's lots of university resources for mix your own recipes for specialty soil mixes.
How about that?
Yes.
And of course, we'll have those links on our website.
Excellent. Sure. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that as well. That's good stuff, Celeste.
Good
stuff. All right. Thank you much.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. Anytime.
Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. To find out more information on this topic, just click on the familyplotgarden.com link in the description.